What if I told you that some of Hollywood's most cherished stars were living double lives so elaborate that they make today's celebrity scandals look like child's play? Behind the glamour and glitter of the golden age lurked family secrets so shocking that studios spent millions to bury them. We're talking about stars who erased their heritage, invented phantom families, and carried guilt that would destroy them. Glittering premieres, elegant mansions, and adoring fans, the stars of Hollywood's golden age seemed to live charmed lives. But behind those dazzling smiles and carefully posed family portraits lurked secrets so explosive that the powerful studio system spent millions to keep them hidden. These weren't just minor indiscretions. They were life-altering family secrets that would have shattered the pristine images audiences cherished. During Hollywood's golden age, roughly spanning the 1930s to 1960s, stars were manufactured personas, not just actors. Studios like Paramount and MGM controlled every detail of their lives, often fabricating entire identities. Publicists and fixers buried scandals, while ironclad contracts gave studios immense power. Today, with memoirs surfacing and studio records finally emerging, we're discovering the personal sacrifices and secrets these icons kept hidden to preserve their carefully crafted images. Hidden identities and fabricated origins number 15. Norma Jean Mortensen, the foster child who never found home, known as Marilyn Monroe. Behind Monroe's platinum blonde bombshell image lay one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking stories of abandonment and the desperate search for love. Born in 1926, she never knew her father and spent most of her childhood in foster homes and orphanages. After her mother, Gladys, was institutionalized for mental illness, the little girl, who would become the world's most famous icon, was shuttled between 11 different foster families before age 16. She endured assault by at least one foster father and developed a stutter that plagued her throughout her life when she was nervous. At 16, she married a neighbor's son, primarily to avoid returning to the orphanage. Monroe's famous breathless voice and childlike demeanor weren't just acting choices. They were psychological defense mechanisms developed in childhood to seem non-threatening and lovable to the adults who controlled her fate. The tragedy of Monroe's later life stemmed directly from her childhood trauma. Despite worldwide fame and adoration, she remained convinced that everyone would eventually abandon her, leading to a pattern of desperate relationships and 3 failed marriages. She was in and out of psychiatric hospitals, struggling with dependency on sleeping pills and alcohol. Her famous affairs with powerful individuals like Kennedy John F. were partly attempts to find the father figure she had never had. Even at the height of her fame, she would call friends in the middle of the night, terrified of being alone. On August 5, 1962, Monroe was found deceased at age 36 from an overdose of barbiturates. The woman who had brought joy to millions had never been able to heal the wounded child within herself. Her passing marked the end of an era, but also highlighted the devastating cost of childhood trauma that no amount of fame or success could repair. Number 14. Young Loretta and Gable Clark, Hollywood's most explosive secret child. In 1935, Young and Gable, both at the height of their careers, began an affair while filming The Call of the Wild, which resulted in an unplanned pregnancy. Fearing scandal, Young devised an elaborate plan to cover it up. She secretly gave birth to a daughter, placed her in an orphanage, and later adopted the child, naming her Judy. For years, Young maintained this fiction, never revealing that Gable was the biological father. Gable never acknowledged Judy, though they met once when she was 15. Young denied the truth when Judy questioned her resemblance to Gable. The secret remained intact for decades, with Hollywood insiders speculating, but the press never confirming it. In 1994, Judy revealed in her autobiography that she confronted Young in 1966, and Young finally admitted the truth. The deception was motivated by Young's Catholic beliefs and her desire to protect her career. The emotional toll on all involved was significant. Young lived in fear of exposure. Gable never acknowledged his daughter. Judy grew up confused about her origins. This cover-up highlights the lengths stars went to protect their images and the power of Hollywood's studio system to shape public perception. The aftermath of this revelation shows the resilience of the human spirit. Despite growing up without knowing her true parentage, Louis Judy became a successful actress and producer in her own right. She went on to champion causes related to adoption and family rights, turning her painful experience into advocacy for others. Her relationship with young Loretta, while strained by years of deception, eventually evolved into mutual understanding and forgiveness. Young, burdened by guilt for decades, found peace in finally telling the truth. The secret that had tormented 3 people for 60 years ultimately brought them a measure of healing. Number 13. Hudson Rock, the marriage that saved a career. In the 1950s, Hudson Rock was Hollywood's leading gentleman, handsome, charming, and marketed as the ideal bachelor. In reality, he was a gay individual forced to hide his identity. When rumors threatened to expose him in 1955, his agent arranged a sham marriage to Secretary Gates Phyllis to preserve his image. The staged union ended in 1958, having served its purpose. Hudson resumed his secret life, maintaining a straight persona publicly while living authentically in private. His 1985 AIDS diagnosis exposed the truth and marked a shift in public awareness. His story reflects Hollywood's extreme measures to protect star personas. Hudson's final act became one of unexpected heroism when he revealed his AIDS diagnosis in 1985. He became the first major celebrity to put a human face on the disease. His announcement led to a doubling of donations to AIDS research organizations almost overnight. In his will, he left $250,000 to help establish the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMF. His passing marked a turning point in public awareness and compassion for AIDS victims. The individual who had hidden his true self for decades used his final months to help save others living with the same secret struggles he had endured. Number 12. Oberon Merle erasing an entire heritage. When audiences gazed at Oberon's exotic beauty in films like Wuthering Heights, they were told she hailed from aristocratic British roots in Tasmania, Australia. The truth? This Oscar-nominated actress was born Estelle Marule O'Brien Thompson in Bombay, India in 1911, the daughter of a 14-year-old mother of mixed heritage and a British father. The reality of Oberon's birth was troubling. Her biological mother, Constance, was the victim of assault, likely by her stepfather, Arthur Thompson. To shield the young girl from this horrific truth, Marule was raised believing her grandmother Charlotte was her mother, and her actual mother, Constance, was her older sister. When Marule became a star, the studio created an entirely fictitious background, claiming she was from Tasmania, a location chosen specifically because its records had been destroyed in a fire, making verification impossible. She maintained this fiction throughout her life, even refusing to visit Australia until late in her career when she feared exposure. The deception required constant vigilance. As she aged, Oberon underwent painful skincare treatments and specialized lighting to conceal her mixed-race complexion. Even her husband and children weren't told the truth. This wasn't mere vanity. In an era of strict limitations, the revelation of her true heritage would have ended her career instantly. Despite the burden of her secret, Oberon displayed remarkable resilience and generosity throughout her life. She quietly donated substantial sums to various charities, particularly those helping children in need. Close friends recalled her as intensely vulnerable beneath her polished exterior, often breaking down in private about the loneliness of never being able to share her true identity. Even her closest relationships were haunted by the fear that intimacy might lead to discovery. She lived in constant terror that someone from her past in India might recognize her and expose the truth. Number 11. Hayworth Rita, the Latina star's painful transformation. The woman who became the definitive American love goddess began life as Margarita Carmen Canino, daughter of Spanish dancer Eduardo Canino. Studio heads saw potential in the talented dancer but considered her too exotic for mainstream appeal. The solution? A complete identity transformation. Columbia Pictures executive Con Harry oversaw her reinvention. Her naturally dark hair was dyed auburn. Her hairline was painfully altered through electrolysis to appear less Latin, and her name changed to Hayworth Rita. The studio fabricated a more acceptable background, downplaying her Spanish heritage. But this public transformation masked a far darker family secret. Behind Rita's glamorous image lay a childhood of trauma. Her father, Eduardo, had forced her to perform as his dance partner from age 12, touring casinos and frontier towns. During these tours, Hayworth endured assault at the hands of her own father. A devastating secret she revealed to her second husband, Wells Orson. While audiences were enchanted by the sensual confidence Hayworth displayed in films like Gilda, she privately struggled with crippling insecurity and a pattern of destructive relationships. "They go to bed with Gilda and wake up with me," she once lamented. Despite becoming one of Hollywood's most iconic stars, Hayworth struggled to escape the trauma of her hidden childhood and the erasure of her cultural identity. The cruel irony of Hayworth's later life added another layer of tragedy to her story. In her 40s, she began showing symptoms of what was initially dismissed as alcoholism and erratic behavior. In reality, she was developing early-onset Alzheimer's disease, which would steal her memories, including the painful ones she had carried for so long. Orson Welles, who truly understood her pain, remained one of the few people who saw past her manufactured image to the wounded child beneath. Even in her final years, as the disease progressed, she would sometimes revert to speaking Spanish, as if her true identity was finally breaking through the carefully constructed facade. Number 10. Nicholson Jack, when your sister is actually your mother. In 1974, Nicholson Jack learned a stunning truth. The woman he believed was his sister, June, was actually his mother. His mother, Ethel, was really his grandmother. To hide June's unwed pregnancy in 1937, the family fabricated their roles so convincingly that Jack only discovered the truth at age 37 through a Time magazine reporter. Both women had passed away before he learned the truth. Though not traumatized, Nicholson reflected deeply on his past. His story highlights the intense stigma around unwed motherhood in mid-century America, where families often restructured reality to protect reputation, an experience shared by many during that time. Despite his reputation as Hollywood's ultimate bachelor, Nicholson proved to be a devoted father to his 6 children from various relationships. Friends describe him as surprisingly tender and involved with his kids, perhaps compensating for the family dysfunction he experienced. In his later years, as his health declined, these same children rallied around him with remarkable devotion. His daughter Lorraine became particularly protective, managing his care as he dealt with memory issues. The individual who grew up believing his mother was his sister created a different kind of unconventional but loving family structure for his own children. Number 9. Burr Raymond, the phantom family he created. As the star of television's immensely popular Perry Mason series, Burr Raymond projected an image of integrity and moral fortitude. Off-screen, however, Burr lived a life of elaborate fiction, not because he was dishonest by nature, but because the truth about his personal life would have destroyed his career in the discriminatory 1950s and 1960s. Burr, a gay man, invented a tragic backstory to explain his unmarried status. He claimed to have been married to a woman named Annette Sutherland, who supposedly perished in a plane crash during World War II. He further embellished this fiction by saying they had a son who passed away from leukemia as a child. Neither this wife nor this son ever existed. They were complete fabrications created to deflect questions about his bachelor status. The extent of Burr's fictional biography is remarkable. He provided detailed accounts of his marriage in interviews complete with dates and poignant anecdotes. He claimed to have married and lost another wife, Laura Andrina Morgan, to cancer, another fabrication. While Burr did marry once briefly in the 1940s to actress Isabella Ward, the relationship was short-lived and childless. Behind this elaborate smokescreen, Burr maintained a 35-year relationship with his male partner, Ben Robert. The couple lived together on a vineyard they developed in California. Their relationship was known only to a small circle of trusted friends. When reporters pressed too hard about his personal life, Burr would shut down inquiries with a curt, "I don't discuss that." The individual who invented children he never had became a devoted benefactor to real children throughout his life. Burr was incredibly generous with his considerable earnings, quietly supporting dozens of foster children, disabled kids, and young people struggling to pay for college. He created his own private foundation years before it became fashionable among celebrities. His charitable work extended to supporting medical research and disaster relief, often donating anonymously. Perhaps most touchingly, Burr sponsored several orphans through international agencies, children he would never meet, but whose educations he funded completely. His fabricated deceased son became in a way dozens of living children whose lives he transformed through his generosity. Number 8. Tracy Spencer, the Catholic, his wife, and Hepburn Catherine. Spencer Tracy, known for his moral strength in films like Boys Town, faced a hidden personal struggle. Married to Treadwell Louise in 1923, Tracy was devastated when their son John was born deaf. Believing it was divine punishment for his own sins, Tracy's guilt contributed to his battles with alcoholism and depression. Publicly, the couple was seen as devoted philanthropists. But by the late 1930s, their marriage had ended in all but name, though they never divorced. In 1941, Tracy began a 26-year relationship with Hepburn Catherine, which remained largely secret due to Tracy's Catholic beliefs and refusal to divorce Louise. Hepburn and Tracy maintained separate lives, and their relationship was hidden from the public. Hepburn accepted the situation, never pushing for marriage or acknowledgement. Tracy's image as a family individual was carefully managed by studio publicity, while Hepburn was seen as just a friend. This arrangement lasted until Tracy's passing in 1967. Only after his demise did Hepburn speak about their relationship, respecting Louise's privacy. Their story highlights how Hollywood's carefully constructed public personas often masked complex private realities. The most remarkable aspect of this triangle was Louise Tracy's extraordinary dedication to their deaf son, John. While Spencer struggled with guilt and alcohol, Louise became a pioneering advocate for deaf children. She founded the John Tracy Clinic in 1942, which became internationally renowned for teaching deaf children to speak and helping their families. Spencer, despite his personal demons, supported her work both financially and emotionally. The clinic became their shared redemption, transforming their private heartbreak into a legacy that helped thousands of families. Even Hepburn respected Louise's work, occasionally making anonymous donations to the clinic. Tracy's greatest performance may have been maintaining his public marriage while privately supporting both women he loved in their separate but meaningful work. Number 7. Crawford Joan, Mommy Dearest, Behind Closed Doors. Joan Crawford meticulously crafted her public image as a glamorous Hollywood star and devoted mother to her 4 adopted children. Fan magazines showcased her disciplined family life, presenting her as a model of maternal care. However, her eldest daughter, Christina, revealed a darker reality in her 1978 memoir, Mommy Dearest, published a year after Crawford's passing. The book described Crawford as an abusive, alcoholic mother, subjecting Christina to physical beatings, psychological torment, and bizarre punishments such as the infamous no-wire hangers incident. While Crawford's younger daughters disputed Christina's claims, the memoir altered public perception of the star. Additionally, it was later revealed that Crawford's youngest children may have been adopted through Georgia Tann, a notorious baby broker involved in the exploitation of children through adoption networks. Though Crawford likely wasn't aware of Tann's criminal activities, this aspect further complicated her maternal legacy. Crawford's carefully crafted image of a loving, disciplined mother starkly contrasted with the abuse described in Christina's book Mommy Dearest and remains a stark reminder of how even the most curated Hollywood personas can be shattered when those behind the facade reveal the truth. What the public never saw was Crawford's extraordinary work ethic and professionalism. Even her harshest critics acknowledged her complete dedication to her craft. She was notorious for arriving on set hours early, knowing every line of dialogue perfectly, and helping fellow actors with their performances. Her perfectionism, while it may have made her a difficult mother, translated into an unmatched professional standard. She personally answered hundreds of fan letters each week and was known for her kindness to crew members and extras. Crawford often paid for struggling actors' medical bills and helped young women find work in Hollywood. Her tragic flaw seemed to be her inability to separate her driven professional persona from her role as a mother. Number 6. Crosby Bing, America's crooner and the children who feared him. To the public, Crosby was the perfect family individual, warm, charming, and beloved for roles like the priest in Going My Way, but his son Gary's 1983 memoir, Going My Own Way, revealed a darker truth. Crosby was allegedly a harsh, emotionally distant father who beat his sons and enforced strict rules, including weekly weigh-ins. 2 brothers, Philip and Dennis, confirmed parts of Gary's account, while a third, Lindsay, later took his own life. Crosby's second family denied the claims, painting a conflicting picture. The contrast between his public image and private life highlighted Hollywood's power to fabricate idealized personas that masked painful family realities. The tragedy of Crosby's story becomes more complex when considering his second family. With his much younger wife, Grant Catherine, whom he married in 1957, Crosby became a different father to their 3 children, Harry, Mary, and Nathaniel. These children described a warm, involved, and loving parent, completely contradicting their half-brother's experiences. Crosby seemed to learn from his earlier failures, becoming actively involved in his younger children's lives, attending school events, and showing the affection he had withheld from his first family. This transformation suggests an individual capable of change, which makes the suffering of his first 4 sons all the more poignant. Number 5. Garland Judy, the father she couldn't mention. Garland Judy, beloved for her role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, had a childhood marked by a dark family secret. Born Frances Ethel Gum in 1922, Judy's family left their hometown in Minnesota under mysterious circumstances when she was 4. The reason was her father, Gum Frank, was reportedly a gay man in an era when such orientations were socially unacceptable. Frank had inappropriate encounters with young individuals, and when rumors surfaced, the family moved to California to escape scandal. Judy was told they were relocating for better showbiz opportunities, never learning the true reason. Frank's marriage to Ethel was strained, filled with arguments and separations, leaving Judy confused. While Frank favored Judy, their bond was complicated by his secret life and the pressure to maintain appearances. Garland's MGM image of an all-American girl hid the reality of her family struggles. Frank passed away when Judy was 13, taking many secrets with him. The full story of his double life remained hidden until after Judy's passing. Judy's early experience with family secrets shaped her own life as she continued to present a cheerful exterior while privately battling pain and insecurity. The loss of her father at such a young age, combined with the family secrets and instability, helps explain Garland's lifelong search for love and security. Despite her later struggles with addiction and failed marriages, those closest to her described a woman of extraordinary generosity and loyalty. She was known for taking in strays, both human and animal, and was particularly kind to other performers struggling with their careers. Her daughter, Manelli Lisa, often spoke of Judy's ability to find joy in small moments, singing lullabies and creating magical experiences even during their most difficult times. The vulnerability that made her such a compelling performer also made her beloved by friends who saw past the public troubles to the wounded but loving person beneath. Number 4. Duke Patty, the son with 3 possible fathers. Academy Award-winning actress Duke Patty found herself in a predicament in 1970 that would remain one of Hollywood's more convoluted paternity secrets for decades. At just 23, Duke became pregnant during a period of extreme personal turmoil when she was involved with 3 different individuals in rapid succession. Duke had been romantically linked with teen heartthrob Arnaz Jr. Desi, son of Ball Lucille and Desi Arnaz. But Lucille Ball strongly disapproved of the relationship due to the age difference. Duke then briefly became involved with actor Aston John, who was married but separated. In the midst of this complicated situation, Duke impulsively married Tel Michael, a virtual stranger who was subletting her apartment in what she later described as a manic episode related to her then undiagnosed bipolar disorder. The marriage to Tel lasted just 13 days before being annulled, but the timing coincided with Duke's pregnancy. When her son Sean was born in 1971, Duke publicly identified Aston John as the father. Aston later divorced his wife, married Duke, and raised Sean as his son. For years, Sean Aston believed John was his biological father. The situation grew even more complex when, in Sean's teens, Duke told him she believed Arnaz Jr. Desi was actually his biological father. A startling revelation that understandably confused the young individual about his identity. Later, DNA testing revealed that Tel Michael was indeed Sean's biological father, providing final resolution to the decades-long mystery. The emotional toll of this uncertainty profoundly affected the entire family. Sean Astin, who would later become famous for his roles in The Goonies and The Lord of the Rings, grew up with a deep sense of identity confusion that influenced his choice to become an actor, a profession where he could explore different personas. Despite the paternity confusion, Aston John proved to be a loving and devoted father, creating stability in Sean's chaotic early life. Duke's bipolar disorder, undiagnosed for years, explained much of her erratic behavior during this period. She later became an advocate for mental health awareness, using her own struggles to help others. The family ultimately found peace when Sean declared that regardless of biology, Aston John would always be his real father, a testament to the power of love over genetics. Duke's courage in speaking openly about mental illness helped destigmatize bipolar disorder and showed that even Oscar winners could struggle with psychological challenges. Number 3. Jerry Lewis, the daughter he never acknowledged. For years, Lewis Jerry was the face of the Muscular Dystrophy Association, raising millions for Jerry's kids. However, Minorette Susan claimed to be Lewis's daughter from a brief affair in the 1950s. According to Minorette, Her mother, Dixon Lynn, had a 3-year affair with Lewis, resulting in her birth in 1952. Despite attempts to contact him, Lewis refused to meet or take a paternity test during his lifetime. DNA testing in 2009 showed an 88.7% likelihood that Lewis was Minaret's biological father. Additionally, Lewis's will excluded his 6 sons from his first marriage, reflecting a troubling contrast between his public and private life. The painful irony of Lewis's situation extended beyond his relationship with Susan. While he spent decades raising money for Jerry's kids, children with muscular dystrophy, his alleged biological daughter lived in poverty and suffered from Crohn's disease. Minaret struggled financially while Lewis amassed considerable wealth, creating a stark contrast between his public compassion for sick children and his private rejection of his own possibly sick child. Yet Lewis's charitable work was genuine. He did transform the lives of countless families affected by muscular dystrophy. His telethons raised over $2 billion for research and support. The contradiction between his public generosity and private coldness toward his own family remains one of Hollywood's most troubling paradoxes. Number 2. Tierney Jean, tragedy from a fan's thoughtless act. Tierney Jean, famous for roles in Laura and Heaven Can Wait, concealed a tragic family secret. In 1943, while pregnant, Tierney contracted rubella after a fan who broke quarantine to meet her unknowingly infected her. As a result, her daughter Daria was born with severe disabilities including deafness, partial blindness, and developmental delays. Fearing public backlash, Tierney and her husband, Cassini Oleg, privately placed Daria in an institution, a decision kept hidden from the public. Tierney's mental health deteriorated as she struggled with guilt, leading to hospitalizations and electroshock therapy. Years later, Tierney learned that the same fan who caused the infection had mentioned their meeting, though she said nothing. Tierney's grief and guilt remained throughout her life, and it wasn't until her 1979 autobiography that she revealed the painful story behind her seemingly glamorous public persona. This personal tragedy also inspired Agatha Christie's novel, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. Though few connected it to Tierney's life, the full extent of Tierney's mental health struggle reveals a woman of remarkable courage. She endured 27 electroshock treatments that destroyed significant portions of her memory, including happy moments with her other daughter, Christina. The treatments left her feeling brutalized and confused, but she never stopped fighting to recover. Despite losing years of her life to treatment and depression, Tierney eventually found peace and even married again. Her later writings showed a woman who had faced her deepest demons and emerged with hard-won wisdom about forgiveness, both for the thoughtless fan and, most difficultly, for herself. Number 1. Darren Bobby, the grandmother he called mother. When teen idol Darren Bobby burst onto the music scene with hits like Splish Splash and Mac the Knife, he presented the image of a confident, ambitious young performer. Behind this brash exterior, however, was a young individual whose entire identity was built on a family fiction similar to Nicholson's. Born Casado Robert Walden in 1936, Darren grew up in the Bronx believing that Casado Polly was his mother and Nana was his older sister. The truth was that his sister Nana was actually his biological mother who had become pregnant at 17 out of wedlock. To avoid scandal, Polly, who was actually his grandmother, claimed Darren as her own child. Darren learned his family secret from Nina herself in 1968. By then he was in his 30s, married to actress Sandra Dee, and had established himself as a versatile performer. The revelation devastated him, particularly because he had idolized Polly, the woman he knew as his mother. Friends reported that Darren was never quite the same after learning the truth. Already suffering from a weakened heart due to childhood rheumatic fever, the emotional shock contributed to a period of soul-searching and identity crisis. He abandoned his carefully cultivated image, grew a mustache, moved to Big Sur, and began focusing on folk music and political causes. The tragedy of Darren's story deepened with the knowledge that he was racing against time. Doctors had warned him since childhood that his damaged heart meant he likely wouldn't live past 30. This prognosis drove his relentless ambition and his desperate need to achieve everything quickly. When he passed away in 1973 at just 37 during routine heart surgery, he had lived 7 years longer than predicted. But the family revelation had robbed him of precious time to process his identity. His final years were marked by a poignant attempt to reconnect with his roots, spending time with Nina and trying to understand the woman who had sacrificed her identity as his mother to protect his future.